Yo, what's good? It's Friday night. I'm tired. I want to chill out. So let's get to this real fast. Take a look at what I worked on. Okay. So I did the gunman yesterday that I got started on. I finished up his behavior. It's pretty sweet. Let's check it out. The idea is he dashes and then he shoots. And then he dashes and then he shoots. And I also, just as an interesting technical tidbit, normally I use some like automatic pathing to determine how the enemies will move around, but for this guy, there is like I use a plugin called the A-Star Pathfinding Project. I think it's probably the most commonly used one for Unity, and it does have a feature for random paths, but I was thinking this is a case where it might be better to actually control exactly where these guys dash to instead of having them do some kind of crappy randomized pathing. In fact, I was even thinking sometimes that dashing enemies could use a little more direction in how they move around. But anyway, so since I want to manually control these guys, I set up a system so that, similar to how I set up their regular walking patrols with some objects attached to them, I also set up like an array of different points that they can dash to, and then they do some calculations about which point is closest or further away from the player. Do I want to move closer or away from the player, whatever, and then they just move along that path. So let's check it out. So there he is. You can see him. There's 3 points he's got there. You can see he tries to like stay away from me. Animation for shooting is looking a bit better now that it's set up. I still kind of want him to be more, like, have his legs more spread out. I don't know, maybe make it a little more exaggerated. But it's definitely looking better. The bullet is literally just a white rectangle sprite right now, so that's why it looks the way that it does. I'll probably get a proper one done from one of my artists, and yeah, I guess that's not much else to say. Oh, and there's your deflection, parrying the bullet. Right now, I have manual aim for parrying the bullet, so it's just dependent upon what direction you come at it from. Oops. Good chance that in the final version I'm going to switch it to be automatically homing in on the guy who shot it, but I don't know, it's kind of cool that you could redirect it. Realistically, though, it just makes it so much harder. But yeah, still some placeholder effects there, but otherwise, looking pretty good, bro. Alright, that's enough of that. And finally, there was one thing I wanted to just really quickly try out. I was kind of curious. I didn't actually properly test, like, what's it like having these guys all together. I'll have this guy here, have this guy here, let's see what happens. Holy shit. Oh, yeah. The fucking Jazzy guy just parried the gunman's bullet. That's crazy. Okay, so that needs to be fixed. I don't want enemies parrying each other's bullets. Okay, it's pretty cool. It's a little overwhelming. Oh, that was pretty cool. Okay, that's actually that's pretty fucking awesome. You can use a bullet to kill one of the other guys. Yeah, that's stunning. It's gonna be intense. I'm gonna probably have to make some like really big rooms, or decently big rooms for yeah, that's fucking awesome. But yeah, I'll probably have to keep the rooms pretty big for when I start combining these guys. Okay. Oh, and the last thing I did was I blocked out the next level. This will be the level that introduces the gunman. So, level 2-5. And we are more than halfway through the second act now. Only 3 more levels to go after this one. Yeah, I decided to go for, given that I really want to emphasize the whole parrying the bullet stuff, I made a lot of these long rooms. I thought that would be a neat idea for this level. And yeah, 2 floors, otherwise pretty simple. Simple opening here, and then just lots of different options for how to traverse this second floor. The other thing I spent a bunch of time thinking about today was, okay, in each act, I wanted to have one, I wanted to have at least one unique level in each act that changes up the gameplay a little bit. So in the first act, for example, you have the level where it's like a wave survival mechanic thing. Like instead of just clearing the whole level, you get to this last room, and then guys come pouring through these 3 holes in the wall, and you gotta fight them all off. And then for the third act, I already had an idea for having a level that's platforming based. So I was thinking, because the third act is going to be kind of an outdoorsy ancient temple area, so I was thinking it'd be cool to have, like, I don't know, maybe platforms that are floating on a river downstream, and you're like fighting across those, and you have to like jump across them, and maybe environmental hazards, stuff like that. So I have at least the concept in mind for that. And I was really struggling though to think of what I can do for the second act, and I think I came up with something decent. It was a little tricky because I also have a story thing going on for this particular level, similar to the first act, how that is where you first meet Dahlia, and she's the one who's kidnapped there that you're rescuing. So in the second act, I wanted this level to be the resolution to Dahlia's subplot, and she disappears from the game after this. And so, yeah, it was tough thinking about how do I come up with a unique level that includes her and wraps up her story and makes sense and all that. So I thought of a level where it's kind of similar to the wave defense thing, but instead of defending yourself, you have to defend her. So I don't know how well in practice, now that I'm thinking about it, this will work, like how fun it'll be to play, but I'm definitely going to try it out, because I think that I thought about it for a long time. This was the best idea I could come up with. I won't bother explaining like what the context of this level is story-wise, but essentially I was thinking it would be just like 2 rooms, and you're trying to get to the second room, but this first room locks down, and then Dahlia is trying to use her wits to unlock the locked door, unlock the mechanism. So in the meantime, you have to defend her against all these guys who are going to be pouring into the room trying to kill her. And I was thinking that having them go after her instead of you would be kind of an interesting twist on it, where you're like defending someone instead of just the typical fighting. It's really similar to the first act. Actually, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tricky. I don't know if that's the best idea, because that's like super similar to the first unique level I did. All right, maybe I need to think about this some more. I can probably do a spin on that, though. Like, maybe while she's unlocking the mechanism, you have to do some shit in the room. Like, maybe there's some puzzle thing going on, and you have to fight guys at the same time. Like, something like that might work. Anyway. That's it for today. Still in the process of trying to get my shit together, but it is what it is. I was going to briefly say, because I was talking about that review from yesterday that somebody left on my demo page. It still feels to me like, although it was a well-written review, it still kind of feels to me like I'm not certain that people who dislike the game at this point, even if they think it's good, but they're like, there's too many little issues that bothered me about it, I'm not entirely sure if that's always the case, that those people like actually kind of fundamentally don't like what the game is. Because there's only been a couple people who have left comments like that. Like there's the guy who left a negative review, but there was actually someone else who left another review before that was marked as positive on Steam, but really it was a negative review. So I don't know, I guess he was just being nice or something. But in both of those cases, they're both written as though like, oh, this looks awesome, but there's like a bunch of these little issues I don't like, and if they were fixed, then I might like it. But both of them, when I read carefully through their exact complaints, it feels like I get the impression that the nature of the game is just inherently frustrating to them. Because I feel like there's people who don't find the game frustrating at all. I'm one of them. But there are kinds of games that really piss me off. Games, like I get really frustrated at Dark Souls, for example. That's a game that's not for me at all. I could sit here and like critique it or whatever, but I recognize why people like Dark Souls games, and I think they're good games. They're just not to my taste at all for what I like in an action game. And I feel like this might be a case where people who play my game and get frustrated by it, and then they pick out like all these little issues about it, I'm not convinced that even if I could somehow alter those things to be exactly to this person's preference, if it would really change how much they enjoy the game. Like I feel like at a certain point, if you get frustrated by it and you're like, oh, it's because of the wall, like I can't see the walls clearly enough, it's because of these objects that get kicked out at you, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's like at the end of the day, like these are things that they kind of fundamentally are part of the design and are meant to trip you up. And if you find it frustrating, you probably just don't like the nature of the game. I don't know how else to put it. It's just not to your taste. Because reading those reviews, I really get the impression that just like, I don't know, I just feel like when I read exactly the little things they're complaining about, I just think to myself, like, even if I change those things, that's not going to significantly alter the experience. And so I feel like it would be really strange to think that that's going to make the difference between liking or not liking the game, if that makes sense. Like I feel like people who fundamentally like the game will be like, I like the game, but I don't like this particular thing. I think this should be changed. This thing has an issue, whatever. And because I've gotten like a lot of feedback and comments that way as well. And that's probably the most common type. But the ones who are fundamentally like, this was too frustrating, I don't want to spend any more time on this, whatever, like, and then they point out oftentimes similar issues to the ones that the people who really like the game point out as well. It feels like the things they complain about are too small to drastically or even significantly enough change the experience. I could be wrong, but I don't know. That's been my experience so far. Because the dude who left the first review, actually, like I had him replay the demo after I updated it, and I directly addressed many of the things he complained about, which were, some of them were similar, and to this other guy. And then he came back and he basically felt the same way about the game, and in fact still had some of the same criticisms. And those things that I changed to address some of the original feedback he gave, like I changed them about as much as I would, I think, realistically be willing to, like reasonably be willing to, without it changing what I feel like is the intended feel behind the game. And so it just feels like, I don't know, man, I don't see like how much more I can change to make the game something that you would like more without changing what it is, and most importantly, what it is that I like about it and why I'm making it the way that it is, I feel like I do notice, for example, one thing that's normally the kind of thing that might frustrate me in another game is something like this guy mentioned. He said it wasn't a big deal, but he did mention something like it feels like the kickable objects sometimes are not counterable. Now that's the kind of thing that could definitely be frustrating, and I will notice myself sometimes when I'm playing, especially like when I just made a new level and I'm playing it. There are times when I'll come into a room and I get hit by one of these kickable objects, and I play the game so fast and I'm so used to it. You do get into a kind of flow state where you're repeatedly getting hit by that same object every single time. But that's not because it's not counterable. It's just that I think there's this intense fast pace to the game, and it almost encourages you to be you're like constantly trying to pull off the same thing over and over again. And I think there's a tendency to try to, like, you try one strategy, it ends up with you getting hit by one of these kicked objects, and you keep trying to repeat that strategy because you're trying to, like, you think you'll be able to like move fast enough to beat it, or you'll be able to whatever, that like somehow the next time you do it, it's not going to happen this time. And it requires you to stand back and think, like, you have to almost like unwire your brain and be like, okay, hold on, I got to try something different here. This time when I enter the room, I'm going to go immediately to the right, or I'm going to run this way, or I'm going to attack this guy first instead, or whatever. Because realistically, it's actually, when you take the time to figure it out, like, really easy to avoid getting hit by those things. It's only when you're like jumping in there and trying to like go balls to the walls that you get hit by them all the time. But if you think about what you're doing before you go in, like, it's really easy. You can dodge through them. If you literally just run perpendicular to them, they'll never hit you because the enemies have a delay on how they aim at you with them. You can block them with the shuriken, and of course you can just get to them first yourself. Like, there's lots of different ways of dealing with it. So, and I wouldn't set it up any room in such a way that you're guaranteed to get hit by it. So it's pretty much every time, like, if you're consistently getting hit by it and then you get frustrated by it, like, that's one of those things where, to me, these are like two different kinds of frustration depending on what kind of person you are. Like, when I play Dark Souls, I get super frustrated because I hate the really like slow, super deliberate, ultra telegraphed stuff, and I'm someone who likes playing like really, really fast, intense sort of things. And I feel like that's almost the kind of thing where I almost expect someone who maybe like really loves Dark Souls would be the kind of person who might get more frustrated at my game, where it's like the opposite, where everything happens like ultra fast and it's like very reflexive and nothing is telegraphed. And so it's much more about like planning things out beforehand and being fast enough to pull it off. And I think there's a drone flying out my window. Anyway, the point is the play style is different, and it can create, I think, a different kind of frustration. And I think if your brain works a certain way, or you're a certain kind of player, like, you might find my game more frustrating than other really difficult games, which happen to be the kinds of games that actually I find frustrating. And like, my game, I don't find it frustrating at all. I'll even get myself in a situation sometimes too where I'm stupidly doing the same mistake over and over, but because it's so fast paced, and I enjoy that challenge of like slightly rewiring my brain, like to make one small difference in my next approach or whatever. I don't know, I like it. And other people, that seems to be the most reasonable explanation from all the feedback I've gotten, because I've got plenty of people who don't feel like the game is frustrating or like it feels unfair at all, but that it feels very fair. And I designed it to be like that on purpose. So when I see some smaller group of people saying they find it frustrating or that it feels unfair or whatever, and other people who feel the total opposite, and I feel that way too, I feel like so much of this is like subjective taste, and you have to be careful in discerning between when is there a legitimate problem and when is it like, I think this has more to do with this person's taste than like a objective problem with the game. Yeah. I feel like I had one other thing I wanted to say there, but forget what it is. Oh, I was just going to say that on a ending note, even though I think most of the, like, anytime I get these kinds of reviews now coming in, it's more so people who just, the game doesn't click with them as well for what it is. I do find that those reviews are still, however, very helpful for feedback that can help me to improve the game for people who really do click with the game and who really like it. I think because those people tend to be the harshest critics, it more bluntly gets to the heart of like the smallest little details that, again, I don't think is going to change this person's mind, but actually might improve the game a little bit and adds a layer of polish for the people who do like the game. So yeah, anyway, I could talk about that for a long time, but I wanted to keep this one short. It's already been 20 minutes. All right, I'm out. Peace. Have a good weekend. See you tomorrow and all that good stuff.